Okay, so my whole life runs on this one iPad. My home, my business, the content that you're watching right now, my meals for the week, and honestly, keeping a tiny human alive. Soon to be two tiny humans, all of it lives here. And I know that sounds like a lot to put on one device, but over the last few years, I've built a system that actually holds all of it without me feeling scattered or like I'm drowning in tabs. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I plan my whole life on iPad, every category, the exact apps, and how they all talk to each other. If you ever felt like your planning is split across 10 different places and none of them connect, stick around because that's the exact problem that this system solves. Before I go category by category, let me tell you the big picture because it is really simple. My whole life runs on two things, essentially, is what it comes down to. Notion and my digital planner. Notion is my brain. It's where all of the information, systems, and moving pieces live. My digital planner is my day-to-day. It's where I actually sit down and think and reflect and plan on the calendar. I do have calendars, dates, and all of that in Notion, but Notion informs my day-to-day in my digital planner. Everything else feeds into those two. And occasionally I'll enlist the help of an accessory app when in need, like reminders or Freeform or notes. So when I show you these categories, notice how they all kind of funnel back to the same place. That's the whole trick. It's not necessarily about having more apps to contain that information. It's all about having fewer homes for it, or at the very least, having a way to direct that information into a source or into a system that just works for you. Let's start with the home, because this is where most people's planning kind of falls apart. I run my home out of Notion, and I treat home projects almost like little DIY jobs. So if we're repainting a room, redoing a space, or I just have a running list of things that this house needs, it all goes into a home hub that I have in Notion. But here's the part I love. When I'm actually designing something like planning a room layout or sketching out where the furniture goes, I actually jump into Freeform. Freeform is that free, almost infinite whiteboard app on iPad, and it is so underrated for this. I can drag in photos, draw arrows, move things around, and just think visually on the page. An underrated feature of Freeform is scenes. And with scenes, I can create essentially a screenshot or a saved place on my board, say office or primary bedroom. That way I can quickly jump to that area of my board without needing to search all over and zoom in and out to find the perfect spot. I'm pretty messy when it comes to Freeform. I like being more scattered and sketchy with this, so I can finalize things a bit more cleanly in, say, my Notion Home Hub, or when I'm writing out tasks for something like DIYing in the nursery in my actual digital planner. The mood boarding and ideating, that happens in Freeform, and it informs how I work to finalize those details in my Notion Home Hub for bigger picture planning. And then when I just need to get the ball rolling on a project, I can write tasks very plainly in my digital planner during a day or a week where I know I can accomplish them. So Notion holds the list and the plan, and Freeform is where I go to get messy and creative before I commit. Home stuff stops living in my head and starts living somewhere where I can actually act on it. Next up, my business. This is a big one because I run nearly everything from my iPad. All of my business management lives in Notion. My dashboards, my projects, my numbers, just the whole back end of what I do. Instead of having a collaboration here, a task list there, my goals in a notebook somewhere, it's all in one connected workspace. I can see what's due this week, what's in progress, and what's coming up, all in a couple of tabs. And because it is on iPad, I can do a full business check-in from the couch, from a coffee shop, wherever I am. And when I'm in need of a bigger screen, say when I'm designing in something like Adobe InDesign or Affinity for my digital planners on my Mac, Notion obviously lives there too, so I can pull it up, or I can have it on my iPad as a second screen while I'm designing on the main screen to stay on track. The reason this matters, and I'll come back to this, is that my business and my personal life aren't in two separate universes. They live on the same iPad, it's the same tool to me, so nothing is really slipping through the cracks just because I switched devices, whether I'm on my iPad, my Mac, my desktop. And because my business is more creator-based, the lines blur a little bit more between personal and business, so it does help having it live all together in one system with a few lines of separation in Notion. This is my creator business blueprint, and it's where my business finances are managed, so I can see what I'm paying each month or year for subscriptions to continue running this thing. I have a section for onboarding independent contractors because I have worked with a couple video editors in the past on some projects. And one of the spaces I am in a lot is my product management page, since I design and release a lot of digital products. And I also just have a ton of ideas for future planners or stickers that I want to release and that I want to have a place to live, other than in my head, just to be forgotten or just in a random notes list. So all of that planning and all of that progress tracking happens here inside Notion as well. And because I've done this long enough, these systems are really well in tune with how I kind of go through the day-to-day. Sometimes I need a nice checklist there inside a product management page, and other times it's just a simple project, simple sticker set, and I don't need all of the steps. So I like how I can pick and choose that in Notion as well. Now, speaking of business, let's talk about content. This video, every product I make, the whole thing is also planned in Notion too. I have a content map where I keep every video idea, the stage that it's in, the script, the thumbnails, all of it. So an idea typically starts as a little card here in Notion, and then it moves into a scripting phase, which is literally what this page is right now, and then a filming and editing phase, as well as obviously published. I can look at one board and know exactly where everything stands, and I can also see a preview of my feed, so I can see what thumbnails will look like kind of next to each other in my Notion as well. This is a little bit newer for me, just so I can kind of preview all of that before hitting publish. And I'll be honest, this is the part of the system I'd recommend to anyone who makes something online, anything online. Having one home for your ideas from the moment that you get an idea to published changes everything. I even have it sorted by whether it's for YouTube or short form platforms like Instagram or TikTok, because it all feeds out of one database in my creator business blueprint here in Notion. So I can plan the type of content that needs planning for that week or that month, because Notion is so easily adaptable and I can easily make changes depending on how my needs change over time as a creator. I can do that here as well. Whereas if I'm doing something a little bit more permanent in like a physical planner or my digital planner, that's a little bit less fluid. So my life obviously isn't just work, even though it feels that way a lot of the time. I do have a family, and that's a whole category on its own. So inside Notion, I keep what I lovingly call my mama manual. It's basically the family operating system. Now, it is heavily geared toward expecting moms, because there is just so much planning and needing to keep up with things while you're pregnant. And that's the information that you just carry with you over the course of 9 months. So I think it works really well here in Notion, and not something that I have to keep pulling up on my phone in the middle of the night when I'm Googling and all these things. I just have it here living in Notion. But I do also have family stuff in here that is really helpful, like routines and child favorites. All of that information can be really helpful if there is a new babysitter or a new caregiver or grandparents entering the home, because then I can just share this information with them so that they have easy access. It also has things like daycare or childcare comparison charts, some milestone tracking, and it has been phenomenal for trying to manage pregnancy amongst all of the other things that comes with already being a mom, and also just a human in general that has a family that also has needs. Instead of that, again, all living in my brain at 2 a.m. when I'm up, where I'm definitely going to crash out if I don't remember it later in the day, it lives here in Notion instead, where anyone who needs it can actually find it. And again, same iPad, same Notion. My family life isn't in a separate app fighting for my attention. It just sits right here next to my business and my home, because in real life, they're not really separate. The lines are all blurred, and it's just kind of all of my life. So as my family grows and as my kiddos grow, I'll likely continue to adapt this for things like chores or older kid routines, schools, activities, and all of that. But for now, this is what it looks like day to day as a pregnant toddler mom. Okay, so now the part that a lot of you are here for, the actual day-to-day planning. This is where my digital planner comes in, and this is the piece that actually keeps me grounded. Notion holds all of the system, the second brain, the longer term planning, but the planner is where I actually sit down and think for the week, the day, the month. This is where I set my goals, I break them down, I check in with myself. I've got my vision board in here, the things that I'm actually working toward visually so I can actually see them. And the part I try to never skip, reflection and review. At the end of the week or a month usually, come back and look at what actually happened, what worked, what didn't, what I want to carry forward. And that review loop is honestly the difference between planning that sticks and planning that just looks pretty. It's not enough to plan forward, you also have to look back. The one thing that I love about digital planning specifically is that it puts pencil to paper essentially that I don't get with Notion. And there is still a lot of benefit to having a pen to paper feel. And I get that with Notion, except it's all digital. Again, it all lives on my iPad. I can see it alongside Notion if I want to. And because it's in a digital planner and it's in an app like GoodNotes or Noteful or Notability, all of that, it syncs between all of my devices. So I can pull up that information on my iMac, my desktop, laptop, all of the things, phone, you name it. I love all of the digital planners that I design and release, but the Cyberry digital planner specifically has a special place in my heart because it is very minimal in design, so I can get as decorative or not as I want to be with it. Though I do tend to prefer a more functional planning style and stickers for planning, it does have built-in shortcut integrations as well, so I can quickly feed appointments to my Apple Calendar to get reminders later on. And it's just really nice being able to sit down, write, a prenatal appointment coming up, using that shortcut integration to feed it back into my calendar so I can actually get that alert on my phone since they're not syncing. Like you would expect with a paper planner. If you're writing something in your paper planner, you don't automatically assume it's going to pop up on your Apple Calendar, your Google Calendar. Same way with digital planning. Digital planning just kind of emulates that feeling of paper planning on your iPad with the added benefit that it is digital in a sense that you can pick it up on your iPad and review it at any time. I can also feed them to the Reminders app if I want to get a reminder to switch the laundry or something like that. And that mostly comes in around 5 o'clock every day because I try to switch away from using my iPad and using my computer. That way I can review these items on my phone quickly if I need to when I'm in mom mode, because I don't necessarily want a screen in my face the entire time I'm interacting with my kiddos. I mostly do monthly and weekly planning in my digital planner, but when I really need to lock in, Cyberry also has daily pages that I can tap into as well. And what's unique about Cyberry is that it also has multiple monthly calendars. And I actually like to use one of the monthly calendars as a small spot to add in a picture that I love or I took that day, a couple of words about my day, and it's just something nice to look back on, of course, and have that little element of physical journaling, but on my iPad. There is some bigger picture planning done in my Cyberry planner too, of course, but it's only ever by the year, while stuff in my Notion might be stuff that I need to continuously access over multiple years. And a lot of the quarterly and yearly planning that I do in my digital planner is informed by the multi-year setup I have in Notion. So essentially the flow comes down to dream and set goals in the planner, act on them day to day, and then reflect. Goals, vision, review. And that's just kind of the heartbeat of the whole thing with my digital planner. Now, I am a huge list person, and it feels like my brain never shuts off sometimes. So I do have a more in-depth reading list that I use to track my reads in Notion. And I also have a digital reading journal when I want to use the Apple Pencil to kind of reflect on those recent books that I've read. I also have a wish list that lives in Notion amongst kind of my financial pages where I manually track transactions, because honestly, having to type each transaction is the best way to see where my money is coming from and where it's going. And if you type Amazon enough times as a transaction, I promise it will make you second guess whether to place another order. But this is also a place where I can keep track of things that caught my eye, I can save it for later, track how the price changes, and hopefully by extension, curb some impulse spending by letting it live inside my list for a bit in Notion. And again, because my brain never shuts off and I'm not always by my iPad, I like to use reminders more so on my phone to quickly jot things down. Again, that automatically connects back to reminders on my iPad. And I know Notion exists on my phone as well, and I do like using it to reference, but it sucks just actually trying to categorize and place things out using it on the iPhone. So I will have random things that I want to get done that pop in my head that just tend to go on my today list in the Reminders app. Maybe things that I want to accomplish during my toddler's nap, or a list of things to keep in mind as I'm out running errands that I don't necessarily need living full time in my Notion or in my digital planner, because they're just so fluid and quick and just simple little things that don't need a permanent spot or a semi-permanent spot in my Notion or in my digital planner. Those are just things that kind of come and go, and those kind of live in those reminders lists that I have on my phone. Last category, and it's the one that quietly saves my entire week if I get it done, and that's meal planning. I plan meals two ways: the running list of meals that we love and groceries and items that we restock quite often, and what we're eating lives in Notion. But when I want to actually map out that week of what we're eating, especially visually, I like to drag meals onto days or just plan around what's in the fridge. I actually go back to Freeform, especially when the meals that I'm planning around is a TikTok video of a recipe that I wanted to try, because it's just much easier to watch and reference it inside of Freeform while I'm actually making the thing. So much like how I tackle home projects, Freeform is that visual scratch pad, and Notion is where it gets stored and turned into a plan, and then it gets checked off in my digital planner later. Deciding once at the start of the week what we're eating obviously removes a lot of, 100 tiny different decisions later on throughout the week. And on iPad, it takes me 10 minutes or less depending on whether it's our usuals or if we're trying something new. So let's zoom out, because that is kind of the whole point of all of this. Home, business, content, day-to-day, family, lists, meals, just 7 big pieces of my life, and they don't live necessarily in 7 different places. They mostly live in 2: Notion for the systems and the information, and my digital planner for the daily thinking and reflection. Freeform is kind of that creative sidekick when I need to think visually, and Reminders is just my quick catch place for when I'm away from my iPad or I have my phone with me, and I don't need these just like floating things kind of living and taking up space in my Notion or my digital planner. And then of course, Apple Calendar is just how I get notified of appointments or events, of things that I actually need to be notified about, so I can plan to go to those events, those appointments, those meetings, and so on. That's why it works by having it all on my one iPad, not because the iPad is necessarily magic, but because everything funnels into the same couple of homes, and each of these systems feeds off of each other into essentially the ultimate productivity system. Once I stopped trying to find the one app to do it all is when things really started to click for me. I can obviously find a better app for meal planning, a better app for family life and, creating chores and all of that. There are tons of apps that feel that one specific purpose for each, but by making one app just kind of work, maybe not perfectly as these other apps would, but making that one app work and just hold all of those systems for me. And then when I need to put pen to paper, I can do that with my digital planner. So when your whole life is connected like that, you stop losing little things in the gaps. If you want to build something like this for yourself, I've got planners and Notion setups that I featured in this video linked below for you if you want to check them out specifically. If you're interested in more details on anything I shared in this video, like a specific Notion setup that I shared, I do have a dedicated video on pretty much everything I shared. Freeform, I have a video all about Apple Calendar and Reminders. I have a video all about digital planning. So I'll have those linked in the description as well, so you can dig a little bit further into each of those kind of main compartments. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If this helped, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you like this video, I do recommend checking out my video all about supercharging Apple Reminders and Calendar, because there's a lot of potential many people are leaving untapped there. So I will see you over there in that video. Bye.